Hi, everybody. I'm Joe Gianta. I'm the VP of Professional Services in North America. I see a lot of familiar faces out there. It's great to see you all. Thank you all for coming. So we've got two great panelists today who will introduce themselves in just a moment. But as Eileen mentioned, we're talking about policy packets, in particular within SmartCOMM. It's probably the most common use case that we see in insurance when it comes to SmartCOMM, and it's something that everyone should be aware of what the best practices are. So I just wanted to share a little insight from my team, and then we're going to hear from our panelists here a little bit about their experience with SmartCOMM and when it comes to policy document generation. So really the first thing when you talk about any type of policy packets is the data model. So what you want to think about when you're creating your data model is whether or not it follows the structure of your document. There's always a balance of trade between taking the time to transform your data model into that document structure versus taking it as is out of your system of record. So that's a trade-off to think about in terms of how difficult that would be. But in general, for your template author's perspective, the more that your data model follows the structure of your policy packet, the easier it is going to be for them. Second thing that really stands out to me when you're building policy packets in SmartCOMM is really thinking about all the documents that need to be attached together. Now, there's always a question that I get from our customers. What do I do? Do I do that, those rules in my system of record, or do I do that in SmartCOMM? So the answer there is you should definitely do that in your system of record. Business decisions based on the data in your system of record that impact the outcome of your business should stay within your system of record, in your policy admin system in this case. And then SmartCOMM takes that list of attachments, those endorsements that make up your policy packet, and dynamically attach them to the main document. So that's usually the best approach from that regard. Third thing, when I think about policy packets in SmartCOMM, are all those static endorsements that you have. So all those ISO forms, all those Accord documents, all those NCCI documents, all those own, custom ones that you build yourselves. Those are ripe for automation. And so when it comes to that, SmartCOMM has had a feature that is perfect for that, which is overlay forms. So for those that don't know, overlay forms, you take a PDF, you insert it into SmartCOMM, and it looks exactly as is. And so that's perfect for all your static documents. You can get them in there quickly, and you're guaranteed fidelity of what it was originally from your PDF, because oftentimes you don't control what that document looks like when it's come from a third party. So use overlay forms in those situations. Fourth item when it comes to policy packets is thinking about, and this goes for all the developers in the room, or at least those that are programming capable. Even though SmartCOMM has the ability to do scripting, to do JavaScript, to do derived properties in Java, you don't have to do it that way. There are out-of-the-box capabilities with a visual representation of if statements, a visual representation of for loops, dynamic shared content, dynamic enclosures. All these are ways that you can encapsulate all that complex logic. So when possible, and it's almost always possible, avoid using scripting, because your business analysts are not going to learn JavaScript. They want to be able to maintain your templates, especially when it comes to the policy documents. That's where a lot of the complexity comes from. So do as much of the analysis up front in your system of record or in your translation layer before it gets to SmartCOMM, but try to avoid doing scripting when possible, because it limits who can maintain those in the future, and it's just complicated. So that's a good rule of thumb to keep in mind. And last but not least, when you're putting together your policy documents, this harks back to what Sarah Kay mentioned before. Think about your end customer. Make that policy document easier to digest, easier to consume. So when you're designing your deck page, that's the front page that all of your customers are receiving. You want to think about, put yourself in their shoes. If you're looking at this, does this make sense? Think about someone that doesn't have all the years of experience that you guys have when you're putting that together. So think about that when you design your deck pages, because that is the thing that people read, that is the thing that people ingest, and that's the interaction that most people have with your company. So it's very important. So with that being said, I want to turn it over to the panel now and introduce our panel here. So first off, I want to ask a question of each of you. I just want to see, can you just introduce yourself to the group here and give a brief history of you and your company and your experience with SmartCOMM. We'll start with Molly.
I'm Molly Manier. I am from National Indemnity Company of Omaha, or NICO. We also have Berkshire Hathaway Home State Company, BHHC. So with SmartCOMM, I'm the product owner. We support both companies and groups of companies within NICO and BHHC. So for us, it was moving off of our legacy systems. We're implementing Guidewire and pulling all of that data into SmartCOMM and being able to quickly generate the documents and get those to where they need to go, whether that's the agents or the insureds or just for ourselves internally. So just figuring all of that out. But that is where we are, and we'll be looking forward to more work with SmartCOMM. So
thank you. Narayanan?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. This is Narayanan Muthuraman, System Architect Director, CNA Financial. So I took care of all the CCM platform and the document management platform in CNA. As you know, CNA is 130 years old company. So we followed almost all the legacy system. Within legacy also, we had old legacy, new legacy systems, and we were gone through all the transformations till date. And I've been with CNA for last around 15 years, around 10 years as a contractor, and then 5 years now as an employee. So we have, this transformation is not a new thing. We always been in the transformation world every time. But the spark came only when this cloud journey started in 2022, where we were moving towards the Guidewire cloud. And that's where we also thinking about modernizing all our supporting integration systems. And that's where we started with SmartCOMM too. And that was a very great partnership. We started with SmartCOMM for a specialty. We started slow, but then we rapidly gained the momentum. And we are now almost with SmartCOMM in specialty, commercial. We moved to commercial, and then we are integrated with many of our in-house application. And we are also thinking about our surety and international business, such as Canada, UK, and all other lines. So that is our journey through SmartCOMM.
Great. Well, thank you both for being here. I appreciate it. And so let's take the next question for Narayanan to start. When it comes to complex documents in the insurance world, it doesn't get much more complex than your policy packets. So when you think about that, could you provide the audience here with the architectural decisions that had the biggest impact on scalability and maintainability? Think of things such as data structure, data orchestration, or document assembly logic. Maybe you can explain a little bit about that.
Sure, yeah. So when we took this policy assembly, we always know, because we have, as I told, we have been with many legacy systems earlier, and right from DocuMerge, DocuMaker, Adobe, AM, everything. Yeah, we have almost name it, everything we have in our company. So we took it like the first thing, as we said, the policy documents is always considered as complex. So that is the hype or thing we want to first tackle it. So we just split it into why it should be complex, first of all. So we thought we can split it into further categorizations and put it into a simpler way, because at the end of the day, business is going to maintain it, and we want to only maintain the complex items in this part. So the strategy we took is, put more focus on the architecture, the styling, and the data model, what we call so what the approach we took is first data model. So data model, we want to keep it very close to the source system, because that is one of the things we always think we want it to close to the document, but it will start very good, because the document generation will be easy at front. But as the things move on, most of the business logics are maintained in the source system, such as Guidewire or any admin system you maintain. And that's where the complexity will slowly build, because they are making the business decisions. They are owning much of the data, and we are mostly the document generation. At the end, if we keep the data model very close to the document generation, that become a roadblock where we cannot handle some of the scalability and maintainability in the future. And business will also come up with a new kind of, always the business is evolving to the customer, and whenever the new complex items or the new state variations and state rules comes into play, it was always a very difficult. So the main suggestion I will do is please concentrate on data model upfront rather than creating a simple data model initially which will support our document and later later tackle it on it. And the second thing is a styling. Yeah, even though we consider like the customer experience is, yeah, we are giving the information to the customer, it's not same. The branding and the styling matters the most because you can see like a Word have around 100 fonts in there, but still Helvetica is considered as the 95% of the people uses it because of its simplicity and the clear structure it provides for the readability of everyone. So in the same way, look at your documents like it's not just a document containing a set of words to everyone. It's more of a representation of your company to the outside world. So that I will say like please concentrate on that branding because that branding make it simple and at the same time let it be effective. That way the customer feel like whichever coming from your company, it represent like CNA or any company, this is your brand and that's how your representation is. So these two are mainly thing, and coming to the assembly line, that is one of the very like complex part. We were always had a issue in our earlier system. So make the decision very clear, like what things should be in the admin system and what things should be in the document, because we don't want a fish to be climbing a tree. Okay, so we want to make sure SmartCOMM is way better in certain things. Similarly, Guidewire is way better in maintaining the system of record and things. So we also made the decision like. Even though some things can be SmartCOMM can handle and it has the ability to do calculations, assembly line, everything, but we kept it very deliberately like those logic in the admin system, because that way, again, the same whole thing. Because when it comes to policy change or when it comes to cancellation or renewals, admin system is making most of your decision. So that way, keeping those policy line, the business logic, calculations are the thing, it is always better in your long run. And to a business, when the business maintain these forms, it will become way simpler them to maintain those forms rather than tackling those kind of small issues at the later point of time.
Great, those are some great points, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
Molly, the same question goes for you. What architectural decisions really helped your maintainability and scalability of your solution?
I think one of the decisions that was made fairly early on in the implementation was that we would have one product model for both NICO and BHHC. But as we started to look at how that data was going to be generated and how other systems were going to consume that information from the Guidewire product, it came to be known that we needed to split that. So we, in our data payloads in the schema, we have BHHC and NICO separate, which also means as we add additional lines of business, we can have, add to that, but under each company, and then it makes it a little bit easier for us to consume that information into our systems, into SmartCOMM, and place that information onto the documents themselves. I also heard somebody in a conversation yesterday talking about signatures and that, they found documents that had signatures from people of the past, and that now with SmartCOMM, we're able to use shared content and any place that we need to have our internal signatures on documents, and if those folks change roles or whatever it might be, it will be much easier to make those updates, as well as, like he mentioned, branding. We have groups of companies within BHHC and NICO, and they have different logos, and so it makes it much easier to maintain the logos and the brands with the shared content. So those are decisions that we had made early.
I think that first point is incredibly important. So I just want to reiterate to everybody, mergers and acquisitions are going to happen in your industry. It happens every day. So you need to plan for that future, plan for that additional brand or additional insurance company that you might acquire to fit within your template, so to make that transition that much easier. So Molly, an additional question for you. Much of the dynamic nature and the length of the policy packets comes from the actual endorsements themselves. What's the quickest way to ingest those endorsements? Is using overlay forms, as I mentioned. Often those endorsements are coming from third parties like Verisk and Accord and NCCI. How did your company approach the endorsements portion of the policy packet build? And was it as easy as importing just a PDF copy?
For those static forms, we did rely heavily on overlays. It made it much easier to ingest those into the SmartCOMM system. But there are documents, business documents, deck pages, those kinds of things that are a little bit more complicated. And we did have to do, some native development on those to make sure that those were structured correctly as they were printed or generated. So we have a good mix, but I would say the majority of ours are probably overlays, and being able to insert the data where it needs to go.
Great. So Narayan, same question for you. How did you handle or how did you approach the endorsements section?
Yeah, I think the same, the overlay is a very good approach, but we segregated into three parts, irrespective of whatever the line of business or whatever is the business units or things, we put it into three categories. One is the policy forms, which comes under the policyholder notices, the conditions and those, and then the endorsements, and then the decks, the policy decks. And also upfront we oversee even though the new business and renewals are the majority of our business and majority of the document, it is the larger package, but the complexity comes in the policy change, because when they do the policy change, that's where we need to compare the old and the new way, and we need to now produce a document. And so we upfront made decision. I think one of the secret sauce we had is we are very close to the business, and our business partner always used to say, this is a relationship which is not a dictatorship, this is a partnership. Yeah. So with the partnership, because certain things what we learned is coming to SmartCOMM and Guidewire or any new platform, there are ways to do things newly, and which is not been done early. For example, this overlay concept, and same with the endorsement ingesting. So the shared content and those kind of new concepts which was not there in the legacy system. Yep. So upfront we had that partnership, and we told what best works with because the business is at the end of their business is going to maintain these forms, and they are the one going to work with the states or going to work with the other business units and come up with the legal language and everything. So we made sure we explained what the SmartCOMM provide, what Guidewire provides to them. And that way, they are very close to this, and not rather than they are just producing forms and sending it to us for development, rather than they know what the SmartCOMM can give us in the long run. So that way, as I said, we segregated into three major parts: policy forms, endorsements, and things. And within that, we segregated into static and dynamic. And one thing as our motto and our leadership motto is innovation and automation is not an option. It should be part of our thing. So we worked with professional service. Even though the overlay is already given as out of the box, we went one step ahead. We branded the forms with the business help, and all those branding we segregated into these three parts. Either it will be a policy form, and we have only 3 templates. It's an endorsement or a deck, and whatever they do, it goes through a tool, which is a custom build utility through professional services. So it will just, they will put it in a SharePoint link, and it will check whether it is a static, dynamic, or deck, and it will just push it to the SmartCOMM. So at one shot, it will be all into the SmartCOMM, and from there on, the overlay, it is just testing. That's what it goes through an automation testing. They just test to the languages are good. And for the dynamic forms, it will be it will go to a state where it will have all the placeholders for the fields, and developer will pick it from there and map the fields. And deck form is one area. It is a different animal. Yeah. We need to tackle it part by part. There is no it is not one solution fits for all, but there we will go with multiple shared contents, and we will go with script. Certain pieces we cannot avoid, because we have to see which is the pros and cons. Even though we are using a referential model and we want to use out of the box referential model as much for deck and thing, at least in my experience, I suggest using the script, shared content and things as much as possible, and put the thought upfront. And always put the thought in the policy change perspective, because the deck is the only main document which changes more on a policy change, where we need to know the snapshot of what is there in new business and what is getting changed in the future world. And there too the complexities comes, I think many of you know. It is not like always an in-sequence change. There is an out-of-sequence change, and the documents can go into different flow. Like multi-instance, the same form need to be printed multiple times with a different point of information of data. So those are the things I will say, it all complexities comes to the deck. So put those thought process up front and things. But one again, the advice is, make use of the professional services. Even though there are out-of-the-box tools available, there is more that can be done on the SmartCOMM.
Yeah, lots of good nuggets of information there. I really like the advice of partnering with the business there. That helps things smooth along the way. So thank you for that. So next question is for Molly here. When you're generating large volumes of policy package, which you hope you all do, it means you're growing, you have more customers. What strategies have you found for optimizing SmartCOMM performance and the document generation speed?
I think for us, we utilize the batch process a lot, batch jobs, as we're triggering out of Guidewire, and so that will help us a lot. I think one of the main items that we ran into as we were doing some testing was on large policies. So we have a large book of business that's fleet, so there can be hundreds or thousands of vehicles on these policies, and so we need to be able to ingest those payloads much quicker and get their documents generated for those fleet accounts and policies. So we had to make a design change where on the front end, it won't go through the batch process, it will go through more of an on-demand batch request. And so that allows for those larger policies to be generated. We're still looking at ways to minimize the size of our payloads that come in, and that will also help us be more efficient in the long run. But we're still having those conversations on how to decrease the size of the payloads so that those large policies can come through the normal batch process.
It's not an easy thing, it's not an overnight thing by any means, so we'll definitely continue to work with you on that. So same question for you, large volumes of policy packets coming through, how do you handle that? What do you do to optimize?
Again, we had a clear vision, like saying we don't want to kind of make it, even though we have digital and things, we don't want to make it everything like real time and make the system blow out, okay? So that's again, we need to see like what business units, what is their priority and what thing. So we make use of all the 3 units, like one is the on-demand, the generate document, and another is the submit batch, which is the close to real time, and the third is the batch process. So we made a conscious decision, like where the business unit is very time sensitive and things, we were using the generate document which is like a snapshot, but it does not give you that much logging. So there is a trade-off, like what is your thing. So for correspondence and where we don't need that much of logging and we need a result immediately, we started using generate document. And where we have a room for close to a real time, then we started using submit batch. And most of our things goes through submit batch, because there we have we have close to real time. At the same time, we have a good amount of logging and things, so we have the traceability, auditability of the thing, even though it is close to the real time. And again, we partnered with SmartCOMM again to increase the efficiency there, so that close to real time is really close to real time and not going beyond our SLAs. So these two are our major units. And beyond that, again, even though whatever we say about digitization, still we have customers who are still relying on print, because they want to see their print outputs at the end of the day. Even though that the percentages keep on drastically reducing, we still have customers who still want to see their print output. So we made a conscious decision, like, okay, so we can still generate these things in real time, but there are customers who still want to see their outputs and things. So those we made it to a batch. So we gave them the option to see the outputs real time and deliver them real time through email or the channels, whatever they expect. But in addition to that, we do a batch process where we do send it for them to print, and we get it printed. So we made a conscious decision, like where to use on-demand, where to use submit batch, and where to use the batch, and that's where we are keeping up. At the same time, we are keeping transparent to the business, like what to expect. That way, we are not seeing surprises later.
Yeah, that flexibility is key, so that's an important one. So we have time for one more question. So Narayanan, looking back on your SmartCOMM implementation of policy packets, what is one thing you would change, or one thing that you thought that was or good, either way? What would you say?
Yeah, I think maybe we can give it as a feedback to SmartCOMM. So one thing what we thought is, as we said, most of our thing we are going to digitization and we are concentrating more on the digital part of the delivery. And as I said, still our customers, some of them expecting the print. So our thought process initially was to tackle, because that is the 99% of our business is through digital. So we went ahead with doing at a very rapid phase of doing all the documents, almost like 5,000 documents in the short span of time to a digitization. But later we realized all those 5,000 documents, even though 10 customers need it, we need to add a channel to it and go for a PostScript and the print output. Yep. So adding these channels to the template, coming back and doing it, even though it's a simple step, we have to do it to all 5,000 templates now. It is not an easy job because it's not like you can click off a button, you can just add that to the 5,000 documents. So there is a process to go through to add a channel in SmartCOMM. So that is one decision. I will say please make sure what are all your channels, even though it's a small part of your workflow. If that channel is needed, it is needed. So please have a conscious decision upfront, what are your channels? So that way you are not making that rework later in the game.
Yeah, it's important to plan ahead. Even if you're not planning on doing that particular channel right away, you probably will in the future, so you might as well lay the foundation for that. So that's a great feedback. Yeah. So Molly, last question for you. What would you have changed?
I think for us, the biggest conversations that we've had kind of late in the game is around the template selector and how that was being utilized within SmartCOMM. And there's a lot of complex logic within our template selector, made it very large, and so was becoming potentially a quality issue, a production issue. And so we had to go back and have conversations with our partners at Guidewire about having the ability to have multiple template selectors. So we have a BHHC commercial auto and a NICO commercial auto now. But with the one template selector, and if we had shared logic within there between BHHC and NICO, and we only needed to make a change for NICO, then BHHC would have had to go and retest their, whatever part of the process transactions that was. So I think that was the biggest hurdle for us in the past 6 months, is that we really need to figure out a way to have separate template selectors. And thankfully, we were able to do that before we go live. So
great. Well, thank you both today. This was an incredible panel, and we're going to have about 5 minutes now before the next session. So thank you all.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.